In this video, Professor Duncan Bell will show you how you detect and analyse fat in micro-CT scan of insects. This is important, as understanding fat content is key to evaluating the nutritional value of insects, which is crucial as we explore their potential as a high-protein, eco-friendly food option.
This is measuring insect fat content, starting with some of our measurements made in the wasp. We decided to study three groups of wasps: pre-hibernation queens, post-hibernation queens, and some of the smaller workers. This diagram, taken from Spradbury's book of 73, reminds me to say that most of the fat stored in insects tends to be in the abdomen. It also reminds me that Spradbury had reported that pre-hibernation queens tended to lay down a lot of fat. They tended to lose that fat over the winter, and so we were expecting to have a fair amount of fat in the first group and less in the second. This is a cut plane view. The fat is of low attenuation. It's these tissues here round the periphery and round the guts. So this is the parietal and visceral fat. You can perhaps recognize the crop full of air. You can also see there's some radiopaque material here in the large bowel. This is another pre-hibernation queen. Again, lots of this low attenuation fat. There's the crop and the very first part of the midgut, the ventriculus. The other structure I'd like to point out is this black question mark, which is actually the poison or venom gland full of low attenuation material. It's actually lower even than that of fat. Just another example of lots of fat laid down in a pre-hibernation queen, so much in fact that the abdominal air sacs are reduced. Again, the poison gland. Turning to the post-hibernation queens, predictably they had much less fat. I want to point out the white arrow looking at the crop. And so, unlike the diagram which shows the crop as a very modest little structure, when it's full of water, it can be very large indeed. So little fat. Again, another one with little fat. Again, her crop distended with water. A rather smaller crop. Now this time her crop is not full of water, it's full of air of low attenuation. If it had a burp, it would be very impressive indeed. Now turning to the workers, it's like everything else. The poor old workers had none, and in none of the I think 10 worker wasps that Nick scanned did we find any radiological evidence of fat. The workers obviously are expendable. In only one of the workers did we see the poison gland. So in summary, the pre-hibernation queens had a lot of fat that we could see. Post-hibernation queens tended to have a lot less, and the workers none. So it was a question, rather than eyeballing the amount of fat, whether we could quantify it using tomomask. So we wanted to work out the total volume of all of the contents in the abdomen, excluding air, and then try to come up with a suitable fudge factor to look at the attenuation of fat. So here we are using tomomask to work out the attenuation of air, less than 8. We then asked the software to select all the voxels that varied between 8 and the upper limit of normal. This is 8-bit data, and we successfully could select the abdominal contents but not the other structures containing air, either air sacs or air in the sting recess. And doing that, this particular wasp had a total intra-abdominal contents of just under 110 microliters. We then wished to work out what was the sort of attenuation values that would select out the fat either in the parietal region round the outside or viscerally, and in this particular wasp it varied between 8 and 30. Notice that we also were selecting the venom gland, and also there was a little bit of selection at the so-called parietal partial volume effect, because these are voxels or pixels that are partly picking up the attenuation of air, which is low, and partially picking up the attenuation of the surround. And so this is giving, if you like, a small false positive. We were also getting a small false positive because this was air in the crop and not in anywhere else. But we were very pleased with this. And here, for instance, is a pre-hibernation queen wasp with very copious amounts of fat shown in blue. Here was a pre-hibernation wasp that had not yet started to form any intra-abdominal fat, and again the only thing selected was this partial volume around other structures. So we got a small false positive of about 9%. Now it's all right looking at the fat content of wasps, but who's interested in the fat content of a wasp? We therefore thought possibly we should look at the abdominal contents of other insects, and decided to use mealworms, mainly because they of course are used quite a lot these days as a source of food. We read this book about insects being used as food for chickens and pigs and dogs and fish, etc. We also read in this book an article written by the group from Nottingham with Professors Brameld, Parr and Salter. I was very impressed with this paper because it made measurements using biochemical methods, and I thought therefore I should visit this group. I was most impressed with the University of Nottingham's micro CT setup, their so-called Hounsfield unit. Dr. Craig Sturrock, who runs that unit, was very polite and helpful to my requests. It was lucky that at the time the group was doing studies looking at mealworms, and particularly the effect of an analogue of juvenile hormone on protein and fat content. Their then PhD student Vicky Hill allowed us to look at some of her larvae with the help of Dr. Craig Sturrock. This shows a CT of a typical mealworm cut in half on the CT. You can see its head, its legs, and the first few of its abdominal content. Dr. Sturrock took transverse sections, about 2,000 sections between the end of the legs, if you like, the beginning of the abdomen. You can see here all these low attenuation fat globules in the fat bodies, and here the guts. We asked that the mealworms were simply frozen and not stained, and you can see as a result the very nice tracheal system. That was useful because the tracheae around the lumen made it very easy to see the difference of the tissues. I've labelled here a few things here: the surrounding polystyrene. I've labelled the muscle, the lumen of the bowel, the large tracheal vessels and the small ones. What we then did was, just using the eyeball technique and good old tomomask, to select out the whole segment and measure its area, select out the the lumen of the bowel, and to select out what we thought was fat and what we thought was muscle, and that being a surrogate marker for protein. This study is ongoing at the moment, but thanks to the help of Dr. Stephen Laycock and another PhD, Dr. Harry Rogers, they're working as we speak on looking at computer generated analysis. Their results seem to be gratifyingly similar to those that I had obtained just using the eyeball, but obviously these are much quicker and less labour intensive. Now, we haven't yet got the results of these, but certainly already we're very confident that we are confirming Vicky Hill, or Dr. Vicky Hill as she is now, results in terms of the fact that this hormone lowers the relative ratio of fat in the specimens. So in summary, we think micro CT is a useful way of looking at insects that can potentially be used as food. We particularly think this will help looking at different stages in development and novel insects.